Hello everyone, this is Sam from HiPy. We're going to be looking at a very quick tutorial on how to get started with Python, how to install and get it set up with a Python environment that should work for you. So we're going to try and install the Anaconda distribution. So the Anaconda distribution comes with Python, but it also comes with a load of libraries that we're going to learn to use and use to manipulate data and look at what we want to look at essentially. So the way that you can install this is you can go to Google and you can just search for Anaconda. And then the first link that comes up will be the Anaconda continuum link, so you can just click on that. And then you can just download Anaconda now, whatever operating system you're using. I'm using Windows, so I'm going to click on the Windows icon. And then make sure you're downloading the Python 3.6 version that's appropriate to your system. I'm using 64-bit Windows, and I want Python 3.6, so I'm just going to click on this. And then I'm going to cancel this because I've already got it installed. Make sure you're using Python 3.6. There's some syntax differences between the two. Python 3.6 is typically going to be faster if you're new to coding, because there's some tricks in 2.7 that were basically just implemented as defaults in 3.6 to make things easier for everyone. So it's quite helpful to know the differences between the two, because sometimes you'll look at documentation that was made for Python 2.7. A lot of it is intuitive, but we're going to get started with Python 3.6 because it's the constantly updated version of Python at the moment, and Python 2.7 is discontinued. So after installing this and running this installer file, you should be able to load up Anaconda Navigator. This is what you should see on the first time loading it up. And we're interested in two programs here, Jupyter Notebook and Spider. So Jupyter Notebook is what we use to make the guides. If you want to follow along in the guides, I would recommend using this as your main environment for following along in the guides. It lets us add pictures, videos, code, text, like loads of stuff into these notebooks alongside actual working functional code, so you can edit and see what's going on essentially. So that's what we use to write the guides, and I'd recommend starting in that if you're completely new or to coding, or you want to test things out later on, especially in some of the harder kind of guides that we're going to be working through, just to see what's going on without having to copy and paste code from one kind of format to the other. Spider is more of a integrating programming environment, so if you've done any coding before, I would recommend using this. It gives you a lot of kind of creature comforts that people used to using stuff like Visual Studio will be used to, like timing the amount of time it takes for your code to run, or having like a variable explorer, that kind of thing. It's just it's very nice to use if you don't have to like export things to a PDF at the end if you're just playing around in Python. So let's look at both of these, and then we'll look at a Anaconda alternative that we can use. So if we launch the Jupyter Notebook, we'll see something like this comes up. And your web browser should also come up. So I'm going to go here and we're going to go to the Jupyter Notebook tab. So we'll see here that I've navigated already to one of my folders that I use for the HiPy resources. And then we can click on the new button over here and we can click on Python 3, and that'll create a new Jupyter Notebook. And then in here we can type whatever code we want. So I'm going to print hello to the console. And then if we press Shift Enter, it'll print the code, it'll execute the code, give you any outputs or any kind of products of processes in this section, and then we'll go to a new cell. So this is a really nice way of just working through the notebook and just kind of getting all your code organized in a really nice way. If we want to start writing text, we can click on the drop down menu and go to Markdown, type hello, and then if we press Shift and Enter, we'll get a nice text, and we can there's a lot of Markdown kind of language that you can get into. But for now, let's close that down. We'll leave this, and then we'll delete this as well. The other option we can use is Spider. So Spider is this. It comes with two programming environments, kind of. We have the console down here, which works very much like the Jupyter Notebook, in that if we just type print hello, we will get hello out. This one also lets us get the outputs out, so if we type in a equals 3 and then we just type in a, it'll actually give us the output, whereas we'll see over here that's slightly different. This is helpful for if we're doing one or two lines of code. You can press Control Enter to go down a line in code and it won't execute it, so in a similar way we can do this, but then you'll actually have to press Enter twice when you get an empty line of code to actually execute the code. So if we have 3 or 4 lines of code, we really don't want to be using this format because it's just a bit messy. But what we can then use is we can use this script editor over here, which lets us organize our code in a really nice way and edit it without having any like commitments as we do over here. So right now you can see that I have a very short piece of code up here, which is just plotting the numbers 1 through 10 to another set of numbers, which kind of goes from 10 and then dips down to 6 and then goes back up to 10. If we press the green button up here to execute our code, we then get the output of this code, which is this lovely graph, and then we can see everything's just in the console. So we can see also here we have stuff like a file explorer, a variable explorer, so we can see all the variables we're using. It's just a really nice environment to use if you're just using it for coding. I would recommend this if you're very comfortable with coding and you're just ready to get stuck in. So we'll close that down. The other alternative is Microsoft give a kind of like a notebook environment. So we can go to here, we can log in, and then we can also, hang on a minute, let me just delete this library. I forgot how to do that. There we go. And then delete this so I can show you how to do it from scratch. Here we go. Okay, so when you log in, I don't think the uni emails work as of yet. That might change in the future. So I've logged in using my personal email, but it can be any email. It doesn't have to be Microsoft affiliated. When you log in, you'll see this screen. You need to click on the create a library name, and then you can create a library. I'm going to call mine Python, and then I'm going to give it a unique library ID. So I'm just going to slam on my keyboard a little bit. I don't want it to be a private library, and I'm just going to create it straight away. If I click on Python here, now we have a list of notebooks, so I can create a new notebook. And then we need to type in Python, or I'll say test, and then the important part is you need to give it the extension IPYNB, which stands for IPython Notebook, and then we're going to select the language to be Python 3.6. We click on New, then we click on the notebook, and then it loads up a web environment for a Jupyter Notebook essentially. This is super cool because it gives us a way that if you don't have Anaconda installed and you don't want to install it on like a university computer or a work computer or like a internet cafe computer or anything like that, where you don't have the time or kind of resources to install a kind of big distribution like Anaconda, we can just load it up online on Microsoft, and we can do everything that we could on Jupyter Notebook just online. We at HiPy use this for loads of stuff. I use it for when I'm just kind of out of a lecture, or I've got like a spare 10-15 minutes and I just want to do a bit of cheeky coding kind of thing. I use it loads. We use it for external events when people can't bring laptops or we're really strapped for time. It's a really helpful resource to know about, and I'd recommend using this if Anaconda doesn't work for you, or kind of like you want a very mobile environment that you can access from everywhere. I think you can also use this really nicely with tablets, a little bit easier than something like just installing the Anaconda to the tablet. So that was how to get started with Python. Hopefully now you're set up in some manner with Python and the Anaconda environment, or at least with the Jupyter Notebook Azure Notebook environment. So next time we'll look at how to get started with the very basics of Python. We'll look at how to go from knowing absolutely nothing to being able to graph very simple sets of data. So hopefully I'll see you then, and good luck in getting started.